Hillary, were you with your dad when he caught this?
Yes.
Well, what happened? You tell me the story.
Well, I was fishing for some pike, and so was my dad. And so Dad caught one, and he says, "There's a big fish here." So he said, "Go over and go get the net." And I ran over, and then I waited for a few seconds. All of a sudden I saw it, and it scared me. My eyes got that big. And I dropped the net, and I ran up to shore.
We heard some great stories behind the big ones that didn't get away, plus the proof right there at our Stroh's Fishing Awards banquet. We also had the opportunity to hear Tom Canty and Shipwrecked sing our Michigan Outdoors theme song. All this coming your way right now, so stay tuned. It's Thursday night, time for Michigan Outdoors.
From the rugged shore and woodland of the north, it's history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fisheries. To the farmlands of the southern counties we'll look around again, and all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan. And sometimes when the moon brings out the diamonds in the snow, and the stillness of the forest lies encased in Arctic cold, the wind might whisper through the trees, listen if you can, it tells you of the beauty in the state of Michigan. In the state of Michigan.
Well, here they are, the multiple winners, the master anglers of the year who caught more than one fish in a category. Some of them some real whoppers. Michael Miller, you caught the second largest largemouth bass. What was your other fish?
A carp.
A carp. Michael Miller was one of a handful of master anglers who caught more than one species. Mike Unger took the #1 bluegill, 2.5 pounds, and a channel cat. John Hook caught a white bass and 4 9-pound-plus walleye from the Au River. Tony Tannery from Detroit fishes the Detroit River and Lake St. Clair. He caught 8 trophies: white bass, freshwater drum, smallmouth bass, and mooneye. Andy Keebler, who collects more patches than anybody, who turned in more master angler fish than anybody. Can you run down the categories?
Well, let's see. There was salmon and
Coho salmon.
coho, rock bass, smallmouth, white bass, perch, bluegill, and some multiples in there.
Well, Andy Keebler caught 13 fish altogether, more species and more total Stroh's Fishing Awards than anyone else, making him our trophy angler of the year. But all the anglers were in the spotlight. The crowd saw some big fish, everything from a 2.5-pound bluegill up to the big muskie taken by Nick Nichols of Bel Air. Look at the size of the, whoa, that's a heavy one. What did this weigh, Nick?
47 and 12 ounces.
Almost 40, almost 50 pounds. Almost 50-pound muskie right here. That was the largest hook and line trophy of 1985. Quite an accomplishment for Nick. He was fishing by himself, and times like this only come by once. Or so you'd think. Now, the crowd heard a lot of interesting and phenomenal fish stories, but the near-record brown trout that was caught twice was one of the toppers. Ralph and Alan Steimel caught a 29-pound brown trout through the ice, and believe it or not, they caught it twice.
He did too, of course, but he's Lake Illinois. We went out and set our tip-ups in the morning, 4 tip-ups, 2 each. And my flag went up in about an hour and a half, about 10:30, 11 o'clock. I went over there and started to pull the line, and it wouldn't come. It got around a snag and pulled, and he got a hold of the reel. I kept pulling. Finally, the line broke loose, and I started pulling it in. I said, there's a lot heavy weight here. So I brought it up close and under the hole and started swimming around. I said, we still got a fish on here. And
you didn't know this was a 29-pound brown?
We didn't know it was a brown, but we were fishing for browns. So I get it up in the hole. Up comes this big willow limb about 6 foot long with all the branches on. And my leader's there, and he says, grab the leader, grab the leader. The leader snapped.
Snapped leader?
Snapped the leader.
This brown trout was gone.
Right, and we didn't even see him. So after that, my line is broke. My other tip-up said, he says, you want to put your line back in there? I says, no. He says, I'll go get mine and bring it over. So
okay, now, let's switch over for the rest of the story to Alan Steimel.
Well, at the same time that this fish was on, my flag was up, and I went over right after he lost this fish, and I seen that the smelt had tripped my flag. So I picked him up after I talked to him, and he said he wasn't going to reset, and I brought it back, and I set my tip up in his hole. And we walked away, and we got back, maybe 50 feet. And I looked back, and I said, that flag's up. I said, you better go take it. And he said, well, it's your tip up. He says, I can't pull a fish up on your tip up. So he says, you take him. Of course, he didn't know he was this big either. So I went and I started pulling him in, and he had told me it was a big fish, and I thought that willow limb he had on was making him feel heavier. But then I could tell the fish was really heavy. And I fought him probably 10 minutes, and he came straight up, and my dad here, he gaffed him with right in the
Brought
gaff.
him up on the ice. The question is, how do you know it was the same fish?
Had two lines hanging out of his
My leader
mouth.
was hanging out of his mouth.
Your leader was hanging out of his
My
mouth.
leader was hanging out of his mouth. We got them both at home yet, both leaders.
One hungry brown trout
On smelt.
ate one smelt too many.
Yeah.
What a great story.
Listed as the world record for brown trout
Ice fish.
through the ice.
Through the ice. The world record. Hey, right here on this stage, Ralph and Alan Steimel from Sutton's Bay. Congratulations. Handshakes also came from the DNR's Ned Fogel and from Tom Anderson of the Natural Resources Commission. They wanted to come up all together. The reason they did is because we have a fellow watching from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Brother Arnold, right?
Right.
You haven't seen him in how long?
20 years.
20 years?
20 years.
Well, Brother Arnold and all you people from Canada who are watching this right now, these were taken off New Buffalo. These are what we in Michigan called Skamania steelheads. What does that mean?
It's a rainbow trout. It's a
That does
special-
what?
That really fights.
That really fights. Okay, it also spawns in the summer.
Exactly.
Comes
yes.
back up the streams. They're longer and narrower than most steelhead, but they battle. They're aerial, spectacular, come right out of the water. Let's see here. We have the 41st largest steelhead of 1985, Ken Walenzik. Hold it up there, Ken. Scott, why don't you move by your dad there? Ken Walenzik got the 41st largest. They were all fishing together, same boat, same day, out with Captain Skip Stafford. This was the 13th of July, Lake Michigan with a J-plug. Frank McConnell. Frank, hold that up there. That's the 24th largest. That's an 18-pound Skamania steelhead on a J-plug. Now, it appears that Northport nailers catch the bigger ones because George McConnell, who got the 8th largest, hold that up, George, got that as 20 pounds, 4 ounces on a Northport nailer, and the 5th largest, Bert McConnell from Clawson, hold that up there, Bert, 22 pounds, 1 ounce, 37 inches long. All of these fish caught on the same day. What are you going to say to your brother now, up there in Manitoba?
Come down to Michigan for good fishing.
That's right. Come on down. I'm sure there's good fishing in Manitoba, but this is what we can catch in Michigan. Doesn't it speak well for our state? Congratulations. All of these Skamania were caught on Skip Stafford's charter boat. Skip caught the #1 steelhead of 1985, by the way. And here's a little lady who has a bright future in fishing. Hillary, were you with your dad when he caught this?
Yes.
Well, what happened? You tell me the story.
Well, I was fishing for some pike, and so was my dad. And so Dad caught one, and he says, there's a big fish here. So he said, go over and go get the net. And I ran over, and then I waited for a few seconds. And all of a sudden I saw it, and it scared me, and my eyes got that big. And I dropped the net, and I ran up to shore.
Well, if she dropped the net and she was hightailing it, then what happened?
Well, I sat there and fought it for probably 20 minutes, and I only had 6-pound test line, no leader, so when he decided to run, I just let him go, and finally I went out in the water a little bit and grabbed him by the gills and brought him up on shore. And that's about it.
Reb, I tell you. And what were you doing for that 20 minutes?
Well, I was hiding behind some bushes.
Hiding behind some bushes?
I was scared.
You were scared? Did you ever, here, give me your hand here. Did you ever stick your hand in the mouth?
No.
Oh, you don't want to do that, huh? That won't hurt you. Well, Hillary, do you like to fish?
Yes.
You think you'll ever catch a fish like this?
Bigger.
Bigger. Oh! All right, the winner right here, Hillary Egbert. Wouldn't she be a treat to fish with? You know, you're going to be hearing stories from many of these Banquet Award winners during the coming year, but let's squeeze in one last tale right now from Shirley Woods about his muskie. Well, I tell you, that's the first time you were spearing.
That's the first time I've ever been up, yes.
What's it feel like when you got one on the end of the spear and your buddy just left?
Wasn't lonesome. I sent the spear down. We're about 14 foot of water, set the spear down. Everything disappeared. And I thought, well, I blew it. You know, I didn't see no fish, no spear, no nothing. And I started pulling on the cord. Pretty soon I got the tension off the cord, and here comes this fish back at the hole, thrashing around the bottom. I never really knew how the procedures were to bring muskie up. I said, I'm not waiting. I'd have to go in with my boots on, you know. And I just brought up at an angle, and I just tossed it right through the wall of the shanty. I didn't open the door.
Right through the wall. Shirley, I think you did the right thing, but you got to take some plywood, hammer, and nails, and I think they'll have you back. You know?
I'd like to take this time to thank Mr. Trost for being a part of this. It's going to be a highlight of my life, and I thank you and your staff and all your people for giving us an opportunity to be somebody in the state of Michigan, and I thank God for giving me the help to be a part of you.
Hey, Shirley, you're the star. He's the star tonight. Well, every angler at the banquet was the star, whether they caught a lot of fish or if they caught a big fish or a big crappie. They all made our lives brighter, and all of them are winners in the world of fishing in Michigan outdoors. Here's one of the smaller mounts that Mark Martin gave us from the fish that he's taken, the Master Angler and Trost Trophy Award fish. This one was mounted by Hugh Stahl. It's freeze-dried, by the way. That's why you can see the teeth are so prominent, and the tongue and the gills, everything are right in there. But this fish is too small for a Trost Fishing Award or for a DNR Master Angler Award. But it's not too small to hang on our wall. We'll hang it right under the perch there. It's just about the size of this real nice steelhead. Speaking of steelhead, you can catch them right now along the western part of the state. This is the best place to catch them. Muskegon River, Manistee River. A lot of good fishing coming up this spring for steelhead in the next couple weeks especially. Salmon anglers, oh, the action. How's the smelt action? Well, we checked that out with our cameras at Port Huron, and this is what we came up with. What do you think?
I don't know.
Feel them. Feel them in there. What do we have?
Nothing.
Boy, I don't know what to say here. Oh, hold it, nothing? We got one! Look at that. Well, Chuck.
You got one, all right.
There you go. No, you didn't get skunked on this one. We'll toss him in there. The early smelt dipping is producing results. Some of the fellows that were there a couple hours with their nets, which they put down in the water, they weren't using the long nets yet because the smelt were right on the bottom, but they were getting smelt, buckets of them. That's happening at Port Huron.
And I read a letter to you last week on the show from the National Businessmen's Cooperative offering a free three-person power sport motorboat with outboard motor. And I did tell you that there was some sort of charge, $129 for handling, packaging, insurance, that sort of thing. Well, did I get the phone calls last Friday after the show? People who had received these boats were just really upset. I mean, they were just visibly shaken, some of them who had just received their boat the day before. And they thought, one guy told me, he says, I got took. This is a scam. He says, I didn't know what I was getting into. It was just a simple matter of greed. He says, I thought I was getting something for nothing. By the way, after seeing that boat, I am not going to use my option either. They sent me to acquire one of these boats. Beware of any sort of mail you get like this that offers you something free. And this outdoor reminder this week that there is a dog training ban that's in effect beginning Wednesday, April 16th.
Three-man sport powerboat with outboard motor, huh, Bob?
That's it.
You know, I saw oars in the store, Toys R Us, $6.97, and they were a lot better than this. And I've seen rubber rafts like this for 2 or 3 men between $20 and $40.
Fred, these people that called were steamed.
Hey,
they
there's no
really
way.
were upset.
There's no way that you could put with this little dinky motor. You might be able to mix up some pancake batter or something with it, but that's about it.
Fred, we get letters. This one comes from Larry Palmer of Detroit, and he writes, he says, why are some lakes prefaced by the word lake? Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, etc. And other words are suffixed by the word lake, Houghton Lake, Higgins Lake, etc. This has been bugging me for quite a while.
Well, Larry, it has to do with the origin of the word. Now, if the word came from a French or Indian derivation, as many of our lakes were named from the French or Indian settlers, they would have the word lake first. And if English-speaking people came in and they said, Houghton Lake, then that would be called, lake would be put after the word, because that's in the English language, lake is put afterwards. Now, there's some other confusing words too, pronunciations like Mackinac. Have you ever been concerned about that or confused about that? Well, above the straits, everything named Mackinac will be spelled with an AC on the end, but pronounced Mackinac. That's because the French settled north of the Straits, and they named everything in their spelling. South of the Straits, the English people were inhabiting, and they spelled everything with a W, but they both pronounce it Mackinac. But notice that the next time you're crossing the Straits, the spelling changes, and that's the derivation of that. Now, let's have an easy question here with turkey season coming up with this question in our outdoor quiz.
What's the longest trophy wild turkey beard on record? Mac Hubbard of Alabama brought home a real trophy gobbler in 1982. Its beard measured 14 1/4 inches and was taken in the Tuscaloosa National Forest.
But I would like to have the handicappers represented because I understand there are quite a few.
Yeah, I would say there's, in Michigan, we got over 1.5 million handicapped and seniors, counting all disabilities.
Well, a lot of seniors become somewhat handicapped with arthritis and things like that, which is, frankly, all of us face as sportsmen. We look at a future where we may not be able to participate in archery or bow hunting, and it would be nice to have a mechanism to get some special regulations through.
All these adapted programs in the state of Michigan, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Wayne State University graduate every year recreation therapists, and they're trained to teach us how to go out and use adapted equipment now to hunt and fish and do these things.
Here's my idea. April 12th at our fishing workshop, I'm pulling together a meeting of people from hopefully a lot of organizations. Plus, sure doesn't look like much here, Kath. Of course, we don't have the sauce on it yet. What this is, well, this is a trout right here, rainbow trout. And what we're eating, Bob has here, is a char from Iceland.
I think I do too.
Yeah, this is a herb-baked fish recipe that I've told you about before.
Right.
That I got you to cook up.
Yes. A lot of ingredients, but it is worth it. Every bit of it is worth it. It's got bay leaves, whole black peppers, the peppercorns rather than ground pepper, salt, fresh parsley, which really makes a difference in this recipe, wine vinegar, which I haven't used too much in recipes. I'm going to add that to a half a cup of water to make a whole cup. You're going to marinate the fish in this.
Well, it's a 50-50.
That's right. Yeah,
it could be more than a cup.
Okay. All you need is 4 peppercorns, 2 bay leaves, and 1.5 those. And this is just for your marinade. It calls for shallot, and I use green onion.
Well, shallots and green onions are pretty much the same.
Right. And fresh parsley sprigs.
Oh, there's that char. Now this, Bob, I caught this in Iceland the end of August, 1st of September. We're going to tell about that trip next week here on the show. But that char is pink flesh.
Oh, very good.
That's a pretty good sized one. But you know, Kath, the problem that I have with using a marinade with fish like that is that they're so wide that you have to make a lot of that marinade. So what I did with these is butterfly the fillets.
It makes a big difference too.
And it really isn't that difficult to take the bones out of a trout, take all of the bones, the rib bones and the backbone out.
Looks like it all comes out in one nice easy piece.
Yeah, you just fiddle with it a little bit with your knife, get in behind the rib cage and down along the backbone there, and you can leave it attached at the bottom.
It makes for a lot faster and quicker eating too.
Yeah, yeah, it does. But there, so you see, I just take the backbone out and cut the tail off, and I think a lot of people find that maybe a little more pleasant to look at. And there it is.
It looks, yeah, it does. I agree.
And the meat holds to the skin like that.
And it sits down in the marinade lower than if the bones are there.
So you can do this with stream trout?
Yeah, you could, just about anything. Okay, now this is going to marinate overnight, and you do want to turn it quite often, just so the marinade goes all the way through that. Okay, then it's got a stuffing. It's got a cup of breadcrumbs.
What do you think of the stuffing, Bob?
Well, the stuffing's good.
It looks like it's dry, but inside that moist fish, it really It really moistens up nice.
It's not like stovetop. Or anything
No,
like that. It's
absolutely not.
Or a turkey dressing.
You know, we use
stuffing.
chives and parsley. Now, there's the chives.
Hey, now chives, we don't see those enough in recipes.
No, that's right. And they do have an delicate onion flavor to them.
Well, you can use onion tops. I often
Right.
use onion tops as a
Right.
substitute for chives.
And salt and pepper to your stuffing. You're going to actually stuff the cavity of your fish.
Now, you could use this, by the way, I think, with any type of fish. You could
Oh, sure.
make up the stuffing.
Well, you could do that with salmon, with a fillet, and put it on the bottom and put your salmon on, and then more stuffing on top. So, like you say, it could be used with any kind. I put quite a bit in these cavities of these.
Well, they
it
help
does
soak
moist
up the oil.
That's right.
It soaks up the oil and the butter a little bit, and it's a good flavor in itself with those spices.
You know, just brush the tops of these with butter. Don't want a whole lot. And you're going to cover it with aluminum foil and bake it.
For how long?
20 minutes is all it takes at 350.
Well, these delicate little trout, fish, so many people overcook
Way
fish.
overcooked fish. And they dry out, and they're just not as good. Now, the marinade you're going to save and strain it, and put some lemon sections in it and more parsley.
And one of my favorite ingredients
Yes.
coming up, which I think is great with lemon, butter, and capers.
There they are. They actually are hard when they first come off the bush, and then they soften up in the vinegar solution that they're packed in.
Well, I don't know if Bob got any of this sauce
should try
on
some of
his.
that on
Pour
there.
it on, pour it on.
And we're going to take this right here and pour it on our fish. This is the way you serve this. This is the vinegar
You
topping
heat
with
this
the
up.
capers.
You heat your sauce up.
Where are those capers? There they are, down in the bottom. Okay, and that's heated. So what do you think, Bob? You've been munching all through this recipe.
I'm happy on 2 counts. Number 1, the fish recipe is obviously great. I've been eating all through this insert. And the other count is you finally coughed up some of this Iceland char that you've been
Oh, yeah.
talking about, but haven't let me taste yet.
Well,
We've heard
Are you
about-
hoarding the stuff or something?
Well, I have a couple more in the freezer, but these were frozen since I caught them last August. I didn't put them in water or anything, and I pan-fried them the other night. Ooh, great!
Oh, I bet.
They seemed, I don't know why, if they retain their flavor better than our native trout.
The flesh
Tastes more
is,
like a salmon brook trout combination.
that's right.
Really
the flesh
great.
is really firm on them.
But this herb-baked fish has a lot of ingredients and appears to have a lot of steps. This baby's sliding right down there on the plate. Boy, it sure doesn't look like much. How disappointing. But it sure tastes good
Oh, it is. Very, very good.
and it's easy to make. Herb-baked fish. Bob Garner, you're a big fan of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think other
bet.
people should get it?
Yep.
Get the recipe?
You betcha.
And here's how they do. Look at these fish. Well, you qualified with a 9-pound, 14-ouncer mark. You caught it at the end of August, 30 inches long, Muskegon Lake on a Rapala. Now, what's the story behind all these?
Oh, a lot of hard work every night. And a few days that I get to go out, I finally got to Denny Garink, this bottom one here.
Pretty heavy, huh? Well, I tell you, Mark Martin is an incredible fisherman. He started a guiding business, and you can see the kind of fish he pulls out at night from Muskegon Lake. I'll shake your hand another time, Mark.
Okay, Fred.
Look at those fish. Isn't that something? Mark Martin. He'll be at our fishing workshop next Saturday in Okemos, and